There is a legacy that comes with skateboarding games, but it doesn't just come from games themselves, but the rough beginnings of the sport. You see, skateboarding itself hasn't really been seen as that exactly, a sport. Since its beginnings in 1940s to the 90s, skateboarding has more been treated as a rebellious pastime, a trend, or a form of a fashionable phase. Skateboarding really flew into the mainstream though during the 80s due to the popularity of cult film classic starring Josh Brolin, Thrashin', and of course release of the Thrasher magazine in 1981, showcasing the rise of Mark Gonzalez and his style of street skateboarding. Skateboarding started then to become more connected to the mainstream youth, and street skateboarding was then introduced to the world. Skating from the 80s through to the 2000s was being driven by the always awesome street skateboarding, but focusing on the personalities of the riders and their skills, and harnessing their own maneuvers so people could be inspired by them, making grinds and tricks and using everyday environments as obstacles to perform with, allowing every single kid to get a skateboard, pick it up and practice in their own front gardens or streets around them, allowing for everybody to interact with skateboarding in the world and use anything they could as an obstacle. Of course though, people who didn't understand skating at the time saw this as a form of vandalism and saw this as something to attack. Skateboarding then would be looked down upon, as it would be seen as a form of a rebellious phase, which is then misunderstandably linked with grunge, punk, rap and even drugs as well. Which is completely outrageous because skating really was about community and was seen as an art form by those who admired it.
It's a sport, you know, it keeps us away from gangs, keeps us away from tagging. Go for it, you gotta do it, you know, you gotta challenge yourself.
But in 1999, the face of skateboarding would change forever with a small professional skateboarder personality you may know by the name of Tony Hawk. After he had performed, which is known as the first documented 900, and ever since then the Birdman has seen as a household name and an icon that every skateboarder in the world knows by name. Hawk's 900 success showed the world that skateboarding was more than just a fun, rebellious activity and something for kids to spend time with, but it was something that could change the world, and for some with a passion like Hawk's can endeavour to change the face of sport forever. But there was also another cultural battle going on in the background with the rise of skateboarding, and that was video games. Video games had been given exactly the same outsider treatment that skateboarding saw during the 80s and the 90s. Where a skateboard lays on the floor, an arcade machine probably wasn't too far, and it was only a matter of time that these two culture-changing events came together and worked as a team. And in 1986, with the release of the now legendary 720, and just like that, the skateboarding gaming genre was born, and it grew and evolved into so many classics, including the likes of Skate or Die and Street Skater on PlayStation 1. But in 1999, Neversoft and Activision were making their big next step into the world of gaming skateboarding, and they were looking for a perfect mascot to do it. And lucky for them, while they were searching for this mascot, Tony Hawk just landed that 900. And just like that, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was born. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater smashed down the walls for skateboarding gaming as a genre and changed the reality of how people viewed skateboarding at the time. Considered literally one of the greatest and most well balanced games ever created, and focusing on the expression and tricks and grinds along with the iconic locations that allows players to freely perform tricks while racking up points. Tony Hawk Pro Skater decided to get away with the simulation of skateboarding and instead lean heavily on the idea of a power fantasy of being a perfect skateboarder, making sure it was over the top and powerful and incredible and made you feel cool all while doing it, and also being able to play as your favourite skateboarder, Tony Hawk, allowing you to pull off the perfect stunt with great reward but with little effort. But the challenge was also there for those who were willing to learn it and take the time to learn the tricks and timing with all these incredible maps. And with that easy pick up to go and have fun gameplay, along came a huge slew of fans for the Pro Skater franchise, and it exploded into one of the biggest gaming names out there. Pro Skater became a staple and spawned countless Tony Hawk based sequels and spin-off, remasters, ports, and of course clones that fell unending. For a while, Tony Hawk felt like the do or die of skateboarding genre when it came to video games, and the likes of SSX and Jet Set Radio adopting the flair of the franchise as well. And despite the huge success of the merging between gaming and skating, and now it's all been seen in a positive light and truly and happily placed itself in pop culture and the mainstream due to the bombastic and unrealistic tones of skateboarding games and sport games at the time, it never really felt like it was treated as a true sport, and for many, the games never really respected it for what it could have been, an art form of expression. Now, I love a good skating fantasy. I would spend countless hours on the likes of Tony Hawk Project 8, but the bombastic, easy to pick up and play style never really kept me engaged and often wasn't enough to hold my attention because I was looking for something a little more grounded. And I got obsessed with a more grounded feeling skateboarding game that I would end up just skating around on the likes of Rockstar's Bully and dreaming of a day that I could feel my perfect skateboarding simulation dreams. And then EA comes along with Skate.
Oh my God.
Yo, somebody call an ambulance!
Skate is, and skate will always be. The Skate franchise came into the gaming skateboarding scene like a wrecking ball. It was a full open world, almost 100% skatable world, and a skill ceiling that kept you coming back years after its initial release. My first real introduction with the Skate series was with Skate 2 in 2009. And let me tell you that it was a game that I was so addicted to the effect of no other. Every day I would come back after school, find myself jumping on the game just to relax, even if it was to play the game for 10 minutes or for 4 hours. I would always find myself something to do, just skateboarding around, improving my skill, and Skate chose to go beyond the lens and the board and tapped its way into something that's so much more essential to the skateboarding community. What was it that Skate had above the rest? What made people feel so attached to this franchise, and why is it still beloved to this day? Black Box Studios showed they cared. They cared for the sport, they cared for the community, the aesthetics, and most of all, they showed they cared for the beautiful art form, which is skateboarding.
Nobody better than me. Look how good I filmed this.
From the suspension and the handling of the worn down set of trucks to the grip on the wheels, Skate understood that skating isn't just about the flair, the personalities, the skills, or even the rider, but it's about having the board and seeing that as an extension of themselves. Skateboarding games were often too focused on showing the tricks and seeing the Birdman front and center, living that fantasy of just being the man himself. And Black Box saw that flair and saw as great as that flair can be, it's not where that focus should be. Skate didn't feel like it was about you and the character doing all the tricks you could, because it wasn't about that. It was about how you handle the board and you interact with the world around you. The start of the show here wasn't about the player's face or the character's name or the legacy they have with them, it was about the soles of their feet and the board behind them. This focus came with excellent reason and with a good understanding of what is so important to skateboarding culture. Skating outside of looking flashing and listening to Avril Lavigne was about expression with the board and sharing and creating your own tricks with the people in your community. And commonly skaters would share this with fellow skaters and find spots to ride along with them, all while doing this with a companion and fellow rider and a filmmaker, which is now known as follow filming. If you've ever seen a skateboarding video or some footage, you will probably most famously see these low angles that focus on the board itself. There is a certain quality and style that comes with the use of a fisheye lens and of course a VX camera. Skate needed to replicate this aesthetic to really immerse the players in its world, and at first it came as a shock to a lot of people who no longer felt like they were the protagonists riding on top of this board, but instead they felt like they were the person who was behind the lens. From a scratched dirty lens, the flare of the sun, and the vignette of the fish-eyed lens, Black Box needed and wanted to show the beauty of the culture, and it doesn't just stop with the camera in your hands. Skate includes an incredible in-depth video editor and community sharing system that only improved with every inclusion of the franchise, turning a simple kickflip into something powerful and awesome. Skateboarder and cameraman Beagle once said,
anybody could, point a camera and just push record, and think that they're filming a trick, but there's so much art to it. What is the best angle to make it look the biggest, make it look the most exciting? This is gonna be for the world to see. This is gonna be skateboarding, for the world.
And I believe Black Box understood this passion for the sport. Whenever you find yourself picking up that controller to pass the time in the world of the Skate franchise, something as basic as a bench can be your personal goal for the next 5 seconds or the next 10 minutes. You set down a spawn marker and you try again and again and give this old dirty bench as much flair and as style as you feel it deserves, whether it pleases you or if it's just for something that you want to do to pass the time. But then you take all that footage and you take it to the video editor built within the game and you show the world your expression and your art of skateboarding in this franchise. And as a filmmaker and a director, I have spent countless hours just filming and editing tricks in Skate. My passion to pull off the perfect stunt has no end. I'm honestly thankful for how much freedom I've been given to show and what I can do in these games. And back in the day, I would pick up this franchise daily and come back and play new challenges and do new tricks with friends over and over again. And this for me wasn't just seen as a source of entertainment, but it was a brand new way for me to share and tell stories through the built-in video editor. And as much freedom and expression I was given as the camera person in the game, it was the art of skating that really caught my eye and those who fell in love with this series. Can you hear that? Without showing you, I know you can hear what exactly is happening and the environment surrounded by it. You can feel the rumble underneath your boards at high speeds thanks to the perfect amount of vibrations that is sourced through your controller. You feel the gravity fighting you as you try and scale up a steep hill, and you completely allow yourself to let go as you traverse down those intimidating pipes. Every time you take a hit or a scrap across the floor, you can feel the full face impact, and the amazing sound design reminds you of just how dead your character should be. Jesus. There is just an uncomparable amount of passion and love put into the sound design of the Skate games. The sound design perfectly conveys a sense of storytelling that comes with any old skateboarding trick. The difference between a smooth concrete pavement or a tiled floor can really make the difference of the impact you're making while skateboarding in the Skate franchise. Something as simple as transitioning between concrete to tile and then jumping onto a grind have 3 different layers of sound design that go with it. You can hear the tiles rattle the trucks beneath you. The concrete pavement has an echo to it as the walls surround it reflect the sounds of your board as it scratches along the floor. When your character is grinding against objects, especially a concrete object, you can hear the scraping of the concrete and the metal trucks coming together. And even things that don't necessarily require sound design are even here. You can hear here as my character hits the electric telephone lines that a burst of electricity explodes, completely knocking my character out. And as my character hits the floor, you can then hear the wheels of the skateboard scratching along the floor unnaturally. There is a lot to be said about the kinetic animation quality for the player's feet and the board controls. My biggest issue with the gaminess of the Pro Skater era of games is the stunts are very fast and overdone with before you even take a moment to admire what you've just done. Not saying the games had bad animations, because that's not the case. They're beautiful, iconic, and they actually stand out on their own regard, and it's those speedy animations that help play into the incredible momentum of the classic Pro Skater power fantasy. And I know I can see you rolling your eyes, but trust me when I say all of these components come together to create an experience for the skate games. But it's Blackbox's passion for small details and imperfection in animations that allow for Skate's animations to stand out. And with all this combined, the vibrations, sound design and impact without the ingenious idea and innovation of a brand new control scheme. And Blackbox did exactly that with the analog stick, or known as the flickit or the flick kick control scheme, which was Skate's true defining feature. Being able to use the right stick to be able to control your character's feet and allowing them to pull off stunts on the board. It felt way more natural and organic compared to a more Tony Hawk style button based system. No longer was jumping onto a grind a matter of pressing Y or triangle and then magnetized into a balancing game. It's now entirely down to you as a player when to time that ollie and to flick the board in the right angle to pull off that grind. For many, this system felt like it actually held newcomers back from the franchise, but it's because of this it required way more practice and skill. And it's that skill ceiling that makes this system work. From understanding how much pressure is needed for a simple ollie to the speed of your thumbs to do a pop shove it into a grind, the flickit system allows for the player to not just improve their timing in the game, but also it reflects their reaction and speed in the real world. Video games have a right to feel video gamey. Characters should have different skills the more you play the game, and the better you become, it should allow you to get those rewards. Seeing a growth in game and seeing how far you've come and seeing the rewards that you deserve sometimes feel amazing. There's nothing wrong with skill trees that we must climb, or in a Tony Hawk Pro Skate or a fighting game style where characters should have different traits and skills. There is nothing wrong with that, but here, that isn't the draw for the Skate franchise. Skate's flickit controls allow for a more kinesthetic gameplay and learning between the player and the game's environment. The more you play the game, the more you become aware of your character's weight and to how to control the board and how to tune it correctly to your liking. There is an immense feeling of growth as you learn to pull off the correct stunts that are timed and allowing yourself to get the highest score in point-based events. There's a natural feeling of progression that actually doesn't come with the game telling you that you're getting better or that you're leveling up. Though yes, you do get new gear and customization and of course visual growth, which is a big part of the identity, Skate instead embraces the player's experiences as a way of moving forward. The player becomes more aware of the different tricks and skills that you can all use, which are all available from the minute go, but it just becomes a game of learning when and how to do them perfectly. Going back to those hours we spent putting down those respawn markers at a hot spot, testing ourselves over and over again. It's almost akin to someone playing a Souls-like game until it just eventually becomes comfort food. We want to see ourselves grow, and it's not the game's fault that we're not growing in the way we expect, but it's entirely down to how much we're willing to sacrifice and learn the game's mechanics and how much we're willing to put into the game ourselves. There is a certain amount of inner comfort that comes from these games once you've put in that work. You begin to move and see the world's obstacles as opportunities to learn and test yourself every time. As I said, Black Box Studios understood Skate at a fundamental level, and this is just all evidence of that. And let's rewind time quickly back to 1999 with the rebirth of what the skateboarding gaming genre would become, and back with Tony Hawk when he landed that 900. It seemed like a moment when a person became a legend, and for those who saw it as an outsider to the community, it may seem like Tony Hawk did it so effortlessly, but that was never the case. Tony Hawk failed the 900 10 times during that show. He pushed himself over and over again, and by the end of the X Games, he clearly wasn't able to do it with the time he was given. Time was up and he had failed, but the skaters, contestants and the community saw that that moment was going to be a moment that would have defined the sport forever, and they gave him a second chance outside of the time that was given. And with that extra time, the rest was history, and Tony Hawk did change the face of the sport forever. The Skate franchise fundamental learning curve and realism is more than just a gameplay choice to stand out of the crowd, but it's a whole form of self-expression that is so perfectly emulates and captures the skating art form itself in the medium of gaming. Skate 1, 2 and 3 have their place as an essential gaming experience, and for many still over 10 years later are coming back for it more and more. And whatever the future may bring for the franchise and whatever is happening with the brand new reboot, the franchise will always continue to show that it matters to those who experienced it. The Skate franchise showed me that sometimes you're not going to always be able to do something the first time round, but with the time and the patience and practice, all that feeling of failing and retrying will all matter in the end. The Skate franchise is literally some of my favourite gaming franchises of all time, and it matters to me dearly. And if you've probably experienced it, I imagine it matters to you too. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, please feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you at the next checkpoints. Goodbye.